I used to buy cheap watches again and again. They worked for some time, then stopped or got damaged. I didn't care much about watches and thought they were just simple tools. But one day, I tried a Seiko watch, and everything changed. It felt strong, smooth, and high quality. That moment made me realize that not all watches are the same. Some are made to last and feel special. Number 10. The fashion brand watch phase. What I was buying before. Every story needs a beginning, and mine begins in the watch aisle of a department store, reaching for something with a brand name I recognized from cologne advertisements. You know the type. Slim case, rose gold tone that would fade by spring, a quartz movement that ticked with a lightness that felt, somehow, slightly apologetic. I wore it to work for 8 months. It told the time. It sat on my wrist and did nothing else. No pleasure in the wearing, no satisfaction in the winding, no moment where I looked down and felt anything other than a vague awareness that I owned a watch. When the battery died, I didn't replace it immediately. That gap told me everything I needed to know about how much I actually valued it. That watch taught me the most important lesson the entry of this journey had to offer. The cheapest thing you can buy is not always the thing with the lowest price tag. Sometimes it's the thing that gives you nothing back. Number 9. The first Seiko. Seiko 5 Sports SRPD 521. Someone at work was wearing a watch I didn't recognize. Not flashy. Blue dial, simple bracelet, nothing that demanded attention. But something about it kept pulling my eye back across the desk. I asked about it almost reluctantly, the way you ask about something when you're not sure you want to know the answer because you sense it might cost you money. Seiko 5. Sports, he said. $90? Automatic. I bought one that weekend. The moment I felt the weight of it, the actual satisfying mechanical weight of a watch that had a movement inside it rather than just a battery, something shifted. The caseback showed the rotor spinning. The sweep of the seconds hand was smooth in a way that battery watches never are. I wore it every day for 3 weeks before I realized I had stopped checking my phone for the time. The watch on my wrist was doing the job, and I was genuinely happy to let it. Number 8. The watch that made me look twice. Seiko Presage Cocktail Time. SRPB 41. I thought the Seiko 5 was the destination. It wasn't. It was the door. 3 months in, someone sent me a photo of a watch with a blue sunburst dial that looked, genuinely and without exaggeration, like someone had bottled the Atlantic Ocean at dusk and pressed it flat behind a crystal. The Seiko Presage Cocktail Time. I studied that photograph for longer than I'm comfortable admitting. I told myself it was too much, that I didn't need another watch, that the Seiko 5 was perfectly fine, that responsible adults don't impulse buy watches because of a dial color. I bought it anyway. It arrived on a Thursday. I put it on and stood at the window in natural light and watched the sunburst shift and move with every small adjustment of my wrist. My wife walked in, looked at it, and said, "That's beautiful." She had never once commented on a watch I owned before that moment. I haven't stopped wearing it since. Number 7. Going deeper. Seiko Prospects SPB 121 Alpinist. By this point, I was reading forums, watch forums, the kind where people debate lume plots and movement beat rates, and the precise shade difference between two dial colors that look identical to every non-obsessed human being on Earth. I was one of those people now, and I had no intention of going back. The Alpinist appeared in a thread about watches with genuine character, watches where the design history adds something to the wearing experience rather than just the provenance story. The internal compass, bezel. The green dial that shifts between jade and forest depending on the light. The 70-hour power reserve from the 6R35 movement. I wore it on a weekend hike and used the compass twice, which is 2 more times than I've ever used a feature on any watch I previously owned. Standing at elevation with a mechanical compass on my wrist, looking at a view worth looking at, that was the moment I understood what watch people mean when they talk about a watch fitting your life. This one fit mine. Number 6. The Dive Watch Discovery. Seiko Prospects SPB 153. Sumo, I don't dive. I want to be honest about that. I own a dive watch because dive watches are beautiful and robust, and because the design language of a serious tool watch, the unidirectional bezel, the bold indices, the lume that glows in your bathroom at 3 a.m., speaks to something in me that has nothing to do with actual underwater activity. The Sumo arrived and immediately became the watch that photographs couldn't prepare me for. The dial has a 3-dimensional quality, a depth within depth, that shifts and changes under different light sources in a way that makes wearing it feel like owning something alive. The case is wide and bold and sits on the wrist with an authority that makes you stand slightly straighter. I wore it to a dinner party and 3 people asked about it. None of them knew anything about watches. They just knew that whatever was on my wrist looked like it meant something. With the Sumo, it always does. Number 5. The one that stopped me cold. Seiko Presage SPB 161 enamel dial. This is the watch that made me sit down. I was in a dealer's display case, working through the Presage lineup with the focused attention of someone who no longer pretended this was a casual hobby, when the sales associate slid the SPB 161 across the glass toward me. White porcelain enamel dial. I'd read about enamel dials in articles about watches costing tens of thousands of dollars, a centuries-old craft that involved firing ceramic at extreme temperatures to produce a surface with a luminosity and depth that no paint or printing process could replicate. I picked it up, I held it in the light. My brain kept returning to the price, trying to reconcile what I was looking at with what it cost, failing completely every time. I bought it. It is the most beautiful object I own. Not the most beautiful watch, the most beautiful object. When people ask me where to start with Seiko, I tell them to start anywhere. When they ask me where it ends up, I show them this. Number 4. The watch I wear the most, Seiko Prospex Ceni 537 Solar Diver. There is a watch in every collection that becomes the one you reach for without thinking. The one that goes on your wrist before your brain has finished deciding what to wear. The one that's already there by the time the rest of the day starts forming. For me, that watch is the Ceni 537 Solar Diver. Solar powered through the dial, it never needs a battery change. The 200-meter water resistance means I never take it off when life gets wet. The lume is extraordinary. I've been known to check the time in a dark room just for the pleasure of seeing it glow. It's not the most sophisticated watch in my collection. It's not the most beautiful, the most complicated, or the most conversation-starting. It is simply the most perfect daily companion I've ever worn. Reliable, capable, and entirely free of the anxiety that comes with wearing something precious in a world that isn't particularly careful about what it throws at you. Number 3. The watch that taught me finishing. Seiko Prospex SPB 249 1968 Diver Issue. I thought I understood watch finishing before I owned this watch. I understood it the way someone understands a foreign language from a phrasebook. Technically, inadequately, without the fluency that only comes from immersion. The SPB 249 is Seiko's recreation of the 1968 professional diver, and the care taken in its production is visible from the moment it arrives. The alternating brushed and polished surfaces of the case create a visual rhythm that makes simple tasks, putting it on, taking it off, glancing at the time, feels slightly ceremonial. The vintage dial design has an honesty and intentionality that modern watches often chase and rarely catch. Wearing it, I finally understood what experienced collectors mean when they talk about finishing quality as a felt experience rather than a visual one. The difference between a watch finished with care and a watch finished with competence is something your wrist knows before your eyes do. The SPB 249 taught me to feel it. Number 2. The watch that changed the conversation. Grand Seiko SBGX 261. There comes a point in every watch journey where someone says the words Grand Seiko to you, and you feel the ground shift slightly. I was at that point. The SBGX 261 sat in a boutique case with the quiet confidence of something that knows it doesn't need to perform. A white dial textured to evoke the birch forests of Shinshu, Japan, where Grand Seiko's Shinshu Watch Studio has produced movements of extraordinary precision for decades. The Zaretsu polished case caught the light from across the room. I tried it on without intending to buy it. The way you test drive a car you've already decided you can't afford. 40 minutes later, I was having a conversation about movement accuracy with a level of genuine technical engagement I hadn't expected from myself. The 9F quartz caliber inside delivers plus or minus 10 seconds per year. The finishing is the finest I have ever personally handled. The price was significant. The regret, after 2 years of wearing it, has never existed. Number 1. The watch that started everything. Seiko Sarbi 033. Here's the thing about origin stories. You usually don't know you're in one until it's already over. The Seiko Sarb 033 was discontinued before I found it. A piece of Seiko history that passed through the secondary market with a reputation so fierce and a following so devoted that prices climbed steadily long after production ended. I found mine through a private seller, wore it for the first time on a Saturday morning, and sat with a cup of coffee looking at it on my wrist for longer than the coffee stayed warm. the 6R15 movement, the domed crystal, the clean, honest dial with its simple indices and perfect proportions. Nothing about it was trying to be anything other than exactly what it was, a beautifully made mechanical watch that asked only to be worn and cared for in return. This was the watch that rewired my relationship with objects, with quality, with the idea that something you touch every day deserves to be worth touching. Every watch I own now exists because of this one. It changed my mind completely. It still hasn't changed it back.